So today we're talking about meetings. I'm just waiting. So someone was telling me that they need the notes now. I'll send the notes at the end of the lesson. Your class representatives are going to circulate the notes on meetings at the end of this lesson on WhatsApp. So at this moment, we are just going to be talking about them. But at the end of the class, I'm going to send them to the class representatives. So today's topic is meetings. We are going to talk about meetings, and the definition of meetings is that it is a face-to-face discussion that is held to achieve set objectives. A face-to-face discussion that is held to achieve set objectives. Then we'll now discuss the terms. What are the terms that we usually use during meetings? And the first term that I'm going to define is agenda. So agenda is a list of items to be discussed during a meeting. Agenda is a list of items to be discussed during a meeting. The next term that I'm going to define is quorum. Quorum is the minimum number of people who must be present before a meeting could legally begin, or a meeting is deemed to be legal when we have a certain minimum number of people present. So say, for example, your club has 30 people. The quorum is a third of that number. 1/3 of 30 is 10. So if you hold a meeting and there are fewer than 10 people in that meeting, the resolutions made during that meeting can be challenged in court and nullified. And the reason the court will give is that there was no legal representation. So you have to have 1/3 of the people in a meeting for there to be a quorum. So then the next term that I am defining is resolutions. Resolutions. Now, resolutions are decisions made during a meeting. Resolutions are decisions made during a meeting. The next term I'm going to define is amendments. Amendments. Now, amendments are changes to resolutions after they have been discussed and passed. Amendments are changes to resolutions after they have been discussed and passed. So now, I don't know if you're following the BBI debate. You've had very many different people saying, we want to make certain changes to the BBI report. So those changes are amendments, because previously the BBI committee sat, and as they were coming up with reports, they were holding meetings, they were sitting with members and coming to a consensus before they wrote the report. Now, after the report is published, some people are reading and saying, no, we would like this and this changed. So those changes are called amendments. Changes to resolutions after they have been discussed and passed are called amendments. Then the point of order, that is the next term, the point of order. These are challenges to the manner in which a meeting is conducted. So I don't know if you also watch parliamentary proceedings. Whenever you see a member of parliament presenting, sometimes another one stands up and on a point of order tries to correct or makes a suggestion or another contribution, even as the other member is on the floor. Now they are standing on a point of order. Now, don't worry, the screen is not clear, but I'm going to send the notes to you later. Right now, I just want you to see. I'm going to send the notes to you later. When I make it bigger, some people say they can't see. And then when I make it smaller, you say the screen is not. Is this any better, Victor? Is that better, Victor? But it will cut some things as I'm talking. So I'd wanted a smaller screen, and then later I send the notes. That's why I was making the screen smaller. But I can try to ensure that, let me try and focus. Too small, very big. Victor, is that any better? I've tried to make it just slightly bigger.
It's okay right now.
Okay. So we are talking about meetings, and I'm defining the terms. The first thing we defined is the meeting. A meeting is a face-to-face discussion that is held to achieve set objectives. Then I started defining the terms. The first one is agenda, a list of items to be discussed during a meeting. Quorum, a minimum number of people who must be present before a meeting could legally begin. And I said, if you have a total number of 30 people, members of a certain group, and that group is meeting, you need at least 10, a third of the total number, for them to form a quorum. Then resolutions are decisions made during a meeting. Say, for example, during a meeting, one item on the agenda is a trip, and then you have several destinations, be it Kisumu or Mombasa or Eldoret. Then you can put it to a vote, and the destination with the most people wins. Say maybe Eldoret gets 15 and the others get 10. It means that the destination of the trip will be Eldoret, and the resolution will be that it will be resolved that, or it was resolved that the trip be made to Eldoret. So that's the resolution. Then amendments. Now amendments, I have said, they are changes to resolutions after they have been discussed. And I gave an example of the BBI, the conversation that is ongoing. The BBI report, before they wrote it, they went around the country collecting views. Now they have compiled those views, and certain members or certain people are now asking for those views to be changed. So changes to resolutions after they have been discussed and passed are called amendments. And now I've come to point of order. And point of order is challenges to the manner in which a meeting is being conducted. So as the meeting is going on, the chair can give someone a chance to speak, but someone else can interrupt the one on the floor on a point of order. And they would be quoting the standing orders. I'm going to define standing orders a bit later, but those are just rules governing a meeting, rules governing the way a society is run. They usually are put in a constitution. So the point of order when you want to interrupt someone that is on the floor or that has the chair's ear, then you stand on a point of order. If you watch parliamentary proceedings, you will see that a lot. Then collective responsibility. Collective responsibility is accepting whatever decision is taken by the majority as binding. Collective responsibility is accepting whatever decision is taken by the majority as binding. So you've seen, or if you watch parliamentary proceedings, after a motion has been moved, the speaker says all those in favor say aye, and all those in opposition or who are not in favor say nay. And then depending on the number of the people that had the most votes, he says the ayes have it or the nays have it. Now, if you said nay, yet the ayes got it, the principle of collective responsibility dictates that you accept whatever decision is taken by the majority as binding. That is also the principle behind that referendum that we want to hold. We'll have a yes and a no, but if the yeses win, then the no will have to go with what the yes says. If the no wins, then the yes will have to go with what the no says. So that is the principle of collective responsibility. It is accepting whatever decision is taken by the majority as binding. Then honorary. Honorary is performing duties without payment. So if you're told you are an honorary member of a committee, if those members in that committee are earning anything, you are not going to earn anything because you are an honorary member. So you perform duties without payment. Then honorarium. Honorarium is the next term I'm defining. Honorarium is a token of appreciation in monetary terms. So, say for example, you have worked as a volunteer in an organization, and at the end of the term that you have volunteered, the organization decides to give you some money. It cannot be called a salary, it cannot be called wages, it will be called honorarium. Then a standing committee.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes.
Kindly repeat honorarium.
Honorarium is a token of appreciation. A token of appreciation in monetary terms. So you are given money in exchange for maybe duties that you have performed. Yet maybe you are a volunteer or an intern. So you are not entitled to a salary, you are not entitled to wages. They'll call it honorarium. Yeah? They won't call it a salary or wages. Then a standing committee. A standing committee is a committee in office for an indefinite duration. A standing committee is in office for an indefinite duration. So it is slightly longer than 3 weeks or 3 months. Yeah. Now, in contrast, we have an ad hoc committee. An ad hoc committee is a committee set for a particular purpose, after which it is disbanded. An ad hoc committee is set for a particular purpose, after which it is disbanded. So these wedding committees, funeral committees, after the event is over, then that committee is disbanded. Now, these standing committees, there are parliamentary committees like the Public Accounts Committee. So for the duration of the term of Parliament, the Public Accounts Committee will run. It's a standing committee. But these other committees I've told you, maybe just for a party or a wedding or a funeral. After the event, the committee is disbanded, and that is an ad hoc committee. Then you have standing orders. Standing orders. So standing orders are rules governing how a meeting is run. And then rules governing how a club or a society is run is called a constitution. Okay, so standing orders are just part of the constitution. But as a meeting is running, if someone is in contravention of the standing orders, then you can interrupt them on a point of order. And let's go to convener. Convener. Convener is a person who calls a meeting. So normally it is the duty of the secretary. It is the duty of the secretary to send out the notice of a meeting. They are supposed to do it in good time, and also they are supposed to solicit items on their agenda. So if somebody wants something discussed during that meeting, then they can communicate to the secretary who will be preparing the agenda. So the convener is the person who calls a meeting. Correspondence. Correspondence. Correspondence is
Excuse me, madam.
Sherry Shine. Please,
Which processing?
this is communication skills, Sherry Shine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So correspondence. Correspondence is letters related to a meeting. Correspondence is letters related to a meeting. Then the delegate. A delegate is a person sent to a meeting to represent others. A delegate is a person sent to a meeting to represent others. Now, on certain meetings, like during the annual general meeting, where voting will take place, if you're a delegate, you must have a signed proxy. So a signed proxy is just a paper that is signed by the person who sent you, a paper signed by the persons who sent you, saying that they have given you power. They have given you power to vote on their behalf. So if you're a delegate in an annual general meeting and you don't have a proxy, then that will be a problem for you because you won't be able to vote for the person that you're supposed to represent. I was just talking about the delegate, and I said
The last point after I
yes,
delegate.
the proxy.
Proxy.
If you're seeing me adjusting something on my screen, I've just typed the word proxy, Proxy, and that is a signed cheat. It is a signed cheat allowing a delegate to vote. A signed cheat allowing a delegate to vote. It's a paper where the delegate has signed away their right to vote. It is allowing a delegate to vote. A delegate is a person sent to a meeting to represent others. Then a proxy is a signed sheet allowing a delegate. So if you're a delegate and you don't have a proxy and it's an AGM, you will not be able to vote. An election is choosing by voting. Elections is choosing by voting. So have you got any questions about those terms? So we've just discussed meetings, the definition and the definition of terms. Now I want to go to purpose. Purpose of meetings. Purpose of meetings. And the first one is to report on past activities. So say, for example, your organization has sent you to a seminar. If your organization has sent you to a seminar, when you report back and there's a meeting, you can be given a chance to say what you learned at the seminar during the meeting. So meetings are good to report on past activities. The next purpose is to plan for the future. To plan for the future. So let me give an example. Before the schools reopen, it is advisable that the school or the staff hold meetings with the support staff, with the academic staff, in order to plan for what will happen during the term. So to plan for the future. Certain activities like budgeting, they require the input of very many members of the organization. So you can hold departmental meetings and every departmental can come up with its own budget. After which, now the heads of the departments can go and meet the CEO and the financial officer, and they come up with a budget for the entire institution. So in order to plan for the future, then you need to hold meetings. The next one is to involve staff in decision making. To involve staff in decision making, especially where there'll be both. Yeah. So for example, you can say that the heads of departments will be elected by their members of staff. Now that means that the department holds a meeting and then there'll be elections during that meeting. So to involve staff in decision making, then you need to hold meetings to enhance interpersonal relations and build teamwork. To enhance interpersonal relations and build teamwork. So during meetings, that is when ideas are exchanged, people get to know each other, and you also get to know members of your staff during the meeting. Some, like team building, you can have special retreats just for team building, and it's a form of informal meeting. So meetings are good because they facilitate even the exchange of ideas. Then in order to communicate policies to staff, you may have to hold a meeting, especially if it's a big change. You may have to hold a meeting. Sometimes it could be even training sessions because you want a change in the culture. You want a change in the attitude. So it does not just happen instantly. You must train your staff. Then to deal with conflicts or crisis. So if there's a crisis in the organization, or if people are not getting along, you may have to hold counseling sessions for people to sit down and agree or disagree, then come up with a compromise. So this is what is happening even with the BBI. You've had people saying, let us have a conversation. That means people want to put forth their opinions. They want to vent. They want their opinions to be heard. Maybe they felt in the first instance when the BBI was being written, their opinions were not taken into account. So in order to deal with conflicts or crises, you may have to have meetings. But for conflicts, let me just say one thing. Maybe you don't put the opposing parties together first of all. You may set a meeting with one party, then you set a meeting with the other party, then you have their point of view. And then after that, then you can have a mediation. Now, during the mediation, that is when you have both parties represented. Then to facilitate the exchange of ideas, sort of what we are having now. This is an online meeting. Some of you are talking to me via the microphone, others are talking via the message board. And I am keeping track of everything. Yeah. So to facilitate the exchange of ideas, then you have a meeting. And then you can also have a meeting to gather information, but this is if you have very few people involved. If you have very few people involved, then you're going to have to do a survey. A survey is where you can even send out questionnaires or ask questions on the telephone, and you collect the information, and then it will give you a picture of what is on the ground. Then let's go to preparation. I've just said the purpose is to report on past activities, to plan for the future, to involve staff in decision making, to enhance interpersonal relations and build teamwork, to communicate policies to staff, to deal with conflicts or crises, to facilitate exchange of ideas, and to gather information. Now we are going to preparation for the meeting. So the first thing you do when preparing for a meeting is to determine the objectives of the meeting. To determine the objectives of the meeting. Once you have the objectives of the meeting, then you prepare an agenda. Prepare an agenda that will achieve the set objectives. Once you've prepared the agenda that will achieve the set objectives, you select participants who will take part in the meeting. Once you know the participants who will take part in the meeting, you need to notify the participants. We are going to talk about the notice of a meeting. So you select the participants who will take part in the meeting. After that, you determine the location and book that location if you have to, yeah? You may have to do an advance booking. Most organizations, they have a conference room. So if more than one department is having a meeting, they may have to have time slots, yeah? So you need to book the time when you'll be in the conference room. Then make arrangements for refreshments and or entertainment. Make arrangements for refreshment and or entertainment. So some meetings run on for very long and people may get hungry and start walking out. So it may be advisable for you to organize a tea break where they just walk to the next room or just outside that room and there's tea. They take that tea, they use the restroom, it's called a bio break, and then you come back to the venue of the meeting, being refreshed, and you continue with the meeting, because things like hunger, they distract people from the objectives. Then determine seating, lighting, ventilation, etc. Especially in this era of COVID, now we have social distancing, even at weddings. Yeah, we have social distancing. Ventilation, the air needs to be clean. Overcrowding nowadays is no longer an option. Also, the hand washing. You have to have a hand washing point just outside before the meeting begins. And you must put, the way you put water bottles and sweets for people in the meeting, you must put a sanitizer. So that after every few minutes, after every 30 minutes, if someone wants to sanitize their hands, they sanitize. So you have to have all those things in place. Nowadays, meetings are very involving. Alternatively, you can have a meeting like what we are having now, online. Everybody will meet, but in their own environment. There you have taken care of social distancing. You don't have to worry about refreshments, yeah, or seating or lighting or ventilation, yeah. And then finally, you check for any equipment that may be needed. Now, for you people, you need at least a smartphone. For me, the first lesson I didn't have my laptop. Now I've got my laptop. I will set it up for internet, and this question of shaking hands will no longer be there. I'll just be clicking on my document and it opens. So the equipment part also must be taken care of. Any questions about preparation?
I have a question.
Yes. Ask.
In the preparation for the meeting, are they following the order, or you can just write any point? You can just start with any point.
You follow the order, because if you don't know the objectives of the meeting, the agenda may not be relevant, isn't it? So it is the objectives that are going to dictate the agenda. Again, it is the objective that is going to dictate your participants. And sometimes when you want to send out the notice, you want to send it out with the agenda. Now. So you must have to dictate the participants. If you want, for example, to set fees, you want to set fees for the next term, then your participants are not the students. But you can give the students a newsletter to give the parent, isn't it? Because it is the parent who is paying for the
fee.
Yeah. So your objectives are going to dictate a lot of things. Then also the number of participants is also going to have a bearing on the location. If you have few participants, then you can have a small venue. If you have many participants, then your venue will have to be big, isn't it? So That order I've given is, it makes more sense because once you have the objectives, you have an agenda and the participants, then you will know the location, yeah? Then you can't arrange for refreshments if you don't know the number of people. You have CFB people here and they'll tell you, whenever you are booking anywhere, they'll ask you then the packs. Packs is just the number of people. They want to know how much tea to prepare. They want to know how many seats to prepare, yeah? And they will also advise you which of the rooms that they have is good, depending on your number. So the order that I have given makes more sense. Equipment is the one that can be left until last minute, but make sure you have it a day before because you may have to check if it is working, yeah? And
Yes.
you don't want it on that day that it is arriving is the day of the meeting. You want to have it at least a day before. But these ones are usually hired even per day. So you don't want to stay too long with it, but you also don't want to get it very late. Yeah. But that order I've given is best for someone who's organizing an event. So if you want to organize an event, even a small meeting, you must know what the objectives are. You must have an agenda. We'll talk about the significance of agenda as we go. You should know the participants because then their number determines the location and the refreshments and even the seating. Then let's go to conducting a meeting unless there are questions about preparation. Now, conducting the meeting is the chairman's job. And the first point, begin and end the meeting on time. Begin and end the meeting on time. There's nothing as frustrating as going to a meeting and sitting and the meeting is not starting. By the time it is starting, the people whose time you have wasted are already angry and they are not focused on that meeting. So begin and end the meeting on time. Remember, these people also have other commitments. So respect their time. When you are late to the meeting and you are the one who have called it, it means you are not respecting the people that you have called to the meeting. And already your meeting haitakuwa vizuri because people are already mad at you, isn't it? So begin and end on time. The next thing is control the meeting by following the agenda. Control the meeting by following the agenda. So some meetings usually don't achieve the objectives because people waste time discussing items that are not on the agenda. So that is why it's very important to have the agenda and have it early, circulate it early, so people can prepare what they are supposed to prepare. And during the meeting, they will only be making valid contributions. So control the meeting by following the agenda. If you see people are talking on items that are not relevant to the agenda, you summarize that point in the agenda and move to the next point in the agenda. Especially when you're the chairman, you can do such a thing. Then encourage full participation. Encourage full participation. So when you see one member dominating the meeting, you can start changing or shifting attention to other members so that they also get a chance to speak. And the final one is sum up decisions and action points. So at the end of every item in the agenda, the chair should make a summary of what has been discussed and highlight the decision or the resolution. Then move on to the next item in the agenda. Now, when you're the chair, and if you're a good chair, you're going to manage time very well, because people only speak through the chair. So if you find someone is dominating the meeting, you can limit the time that they are talking by summarizing what they are going to say and moving to the next point. So you summarize and highlight the action points. Then there's something called follow-up. After the meeting, you should distribute the minutes of the meeting. After the meeting, you should distribute the minutes of that meeting. Those ones are not going to be signed, but people should get the gist of what was said during the meeting. And if there are any clarifications, they are going to ask for them. Then ensure tasks assigned are carried out. So I'll go back to that example of a trip. Once you've discussed the destination, you may come up with a committee to organize that trip. So the secretary and the chairman should keep in touch with the people in that committee who are organizing the trip, find out if they're having any difficulties or whatever progress they are making. So ensure the tasks assigned are carried out. And then solicit, not select. This should be solicit. Solicit feedback before and after the meeting. Solicit feedback before and after the meeting. So even as you're preparing the agenda, you can be talking to people. They tell you what they think should be added to the agenda. So solicit feedback before and after the meeting. As you're distributing the minutes, people will tell you what to add or what to subtract from the minutes, so that by the time you're coming to confirm the minutes, they are a true record of what actually happened. So that is why you solicit feedback before and after the meeting. So do you have questions about conducting the meeting and follow-up of the meeting? Okay, that brings us to another point. How do we make meetings effective? How do we make meetings effective? We make meetings effective by setting objectives, and making the objectives clear to members. You set must be clear to members. For everyone will attend. Gather the necessary materials and information in advance. Like what I'm doing, sometimes I send the notes before. So with such a class, it's good to have the minutes or the meetings, the notes ready. That way, even you people can follow. I hope you are following as I am going. That is the whole point of sending the notes in advance. But I will also send the notes later. All your class reps will have these notes, and you can now have the summary of what we were talking about. Now, when is a meeting deemed invalid? Josephat Karanja, would you like me to repeat all of making meetings effective? Josephat Karanja will repeat.
Yes.
For the sake of Josephat, the first way to make a meeting effective is to set objectives and make them clear to members. That is done by sending a notice early in advance and including an agenda. The next one is to give adequate notice. Adequate notice allows people to free up their time and prepare their contributions. Then have a suitable venue, a venue that people know, a venue that is easy to access, a venue that has adequate seating, ventilation, and lighting so that people don't get sleepy during the meeting. The next one, set appropriate time and specify duration. Now, the time that you set the meeting should be suitable for all the people involved. That way you will get a quorum very easily. And finally, gather the necessary materials and information in advance. Gather the necessary materials and information in advance. So I've given an example of these notes. Ideally, I like to send them even a day before so that people who have a chance can read it. But I will also send it after the class so that you have a summary of what we have discussed. Then a valid meeting, you must give adequate notice. For an AGM, it has to be 14 days before. For these other meetings, it can be 5 days. But as Douglas said, there are some meetings that are impromptu. So those ones, they don't have notice. And normally the participants are small. They are limited. And you must have a quorum. And I've just told you what a quorum is. A quorum is 1/3 of the total population that is supposed to be at the meeting. So if you are supposed to have 30, the quorum is 10. Anything below 10, someone can take the resolution and challenge them legally and say that the resolutions are illegal. They are not representative of the members of that group. The next way to make the meeting valid is to follow the agenda. Don't discuss items outside the agenda. That is wasting time of members. So keep to the agenda. And finally, use standing orders. So if you want to correct someone that is already having the floor or is already making a submission, you stand on a point of order or a point of information or a point of correction. Those are the ways that those are the terms that you use if you're interrupting someone that's already on the floor. So use standing orders. And let's go to the role of the chairperson. So we'll talk about the role of the chairman, the role of the secretary, and the role of members. Any questions? Any questions so far? We've just talked about how to conduct a meeting. Now I want to talk about how every person should behave. How every person should behave. So the role of the chairperson, their first role is to maintain order during the meeting. Maintain order during the meeting. So I'm the chairperson. I'm the one admitting you when someone is talking, though some of you are helping me. I'm also saying that I'm not going to admit you in the next one. They're very notorious people. I will not admit you. I'll note you and I'll not admit you because you're distracting others. But maintaining order during the meeting, that is one role of the chairperson. The second role is ensuring that the agenda is followed. Now, when you are the chair, you control who's speaking during the meeting, and you can also control what they are speaking about. So if you find that they are now out of topic and they are no longer talking about the item on the agenda, you summarize that item and move to the following item. The third role is timekeeping. Timekeeping. Not only do you appoint people, you determine how long they speak. So I'm repeating the role of the chair. I first of all was interrupted by a phone call, and now I found out my mic was off when somebody said what's wrong, and somebody is asking class Imesha. That's when I knew something is wrong. So I've come back and I'm repeating the role of the chairman in the meeting. When you're chairing the meeting, your first role or your first duty is to maintain order during the meeting. The second one is ensuring that the agenda is followed, because you're the one who will be picking the people who will be speaking. So when you see that people are no longer talking about things that are relevant to the agenda, you summarize that point, their point, and you move to the next person. The next one is keeping time. Keeping time and summarizing key points. Then I was at maintaining discipline. Maintaining discipline. So you maintain discipline. I don't know in Parliament if you've seen people being marched out by the sergeant at arms. When you are out of order, the speaker says out of order, you are warned, and if you don't listen, the sergeant at arms comes and he marches you out of the chamber. So you can maintain discipline by sanctioning people, even having them leave the meeting. Then it is the chairman who calls the meeting to order. It's the chairman who begins the meeting. They can appoint someone to pray and also take apologies, but it's the chairman who calls the meeting to order. Then the chairman signs the minutes after confirmation. The chairman signs the minutes after they are confirmed. And the chairman also calls a vote. So when there's something that needs to be voted, it's the chairman who calls the vote. And if there is a tie, the chairman will cast the deciding vote. Say, for example, the yeses and the nos are 11 and 11. The chairman has not voted yet, but now, during the next vote, they are going to vote so that you can have one group getting 12 and another getting 11. So they cast the deciding vote. Any question about the role of the chairman?
No.
The chairman is the one who's in control of the meeting. Any questions about the role?
But a question.
Yes.
You know, sometimes maybe, for example, I've been watching proceedings in the South African Parliament.
Yes.
So you find sometimes the members of the Parliament can't listen to the speakers, who is the chair. So
Yes.
what, maybe can a member interrupt to bring order, or it's only the chairman who can do?
It's only the chair, and when you are out of order, they call the sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms marches you out. That
Okay,
is in Parliament.
thank you.
Okay. Then the secretary, the role of the secretary, it is to prepare the agenda. The second one is to prepare and circulate notice. Prepare and circulate notice. Then the secretary is in charge of all the correspondence relating to the meeting. So if you have an apology, you direct it to the secretary. It will reach the chairman and all the members of the meeting. Then they write the minutes of the meeting. As the meeting is going on, the secretary writes the minutes. It is a record of the proceedings during the meeting. So it's the duty of the secretary to write the minutes. Then the secretary also reads the minutes of the previous meeting. The secretary reads the minutes of the previous meeting. So during the current meeting, the first item on the agenda is usually taking the apologies. Then the second item is reading and confirmation of the previous minutes of the previous meeting. So it's the secretary who reads the minutes of the previous meeting. Then after the minutes of the previous meeting are confirmed, the secretary signs. The secretary and the chairman are the ones who sign the minutes of the previous meeting. And also, the secretary is in charge of booking the venue, refreshments, and organizing equipment. That is the role of the secretary. Then members. Members, their first role is they raise the items to be included in the agenda. Raise the items to be included in the agenda. The second one is forming the quorum. Forming the quorum. The third one is making contributions during meetings. Making contributions during meetings. The next one is carrying out assigned tasks and giving feedback on the same. Carrying out assigned tasks and giving feedback on the same. The next one, electing officials. The next one, electing officials. And finally, it is voting when the need arises. Voting when the need arises. Any questions on the role of members? Questions on the role of members? If you are,
Contributing to the
yes, Achi?
contributing to the motion.
Yes. Making contributions during meetings, I've said. Making contributions during meetings, contributing to the motion. Yes. Any other? So I want you to make some notes on the documents the documents that we use during meetings. One document is the notice. Another document is the agenda. And the final document is minutes. So make notes on those. And also Google some samples. Google sample of notice, sample of agenda. Yes, attending the meeting is one of the roles of the members. But the assignment I've given you, make notes on notice, agenda, and minutes. Those are the documents that we use during meetings. I also answer this question, why do meetings fail? Give about 4 reasons why meetings fail. So assignment, give 4 reasons why meetings fail. And the other assignment, make short notes on notice, agenda, and minutes as documents used in meetings. So now the DCE class, that assignment, I'm going to collect it when you come physically. The DCE class, I'm going to. Boris Mwemba, what do you want to present? So the assignment, I've put it on the message board. Look at the message board for your assignment. And I'm also sending now the notes to your class representatives. All the classes present, CFB, DICT. So I'm sending the notes now. DCE. So the notes of what I've just been talking about, I'm sending them now. So if there is no other business, our meeting is now adjourned. You can go to the next class.